The movie opens in the Pacific Northwestern town of Noyo, California, where many fishermen have their livelihood endangered due to a new salmon cannery business being executed. While many townspeople welcome this change, a local fisherman named Johnny Eagle opposes the cannery, advocating for the preservation of independent businesses. One day, a representative of the cannery named Hank Slattery confronts Johnny, expressing his biased aggression and asserting that the community fails to comprehend the potential benefits of the new business. According to him, the business will make their life more prosperous in the future. Just look at all the good Disney, McDonald's, and Starbucks have done for all the people in the world. In the next scene, we see a group of fishermen, led by a guy named Deke, fishing in the middle of the ocean. Sensing that they caught something in the netting of their boat, they pull the rope. However, the content seems to be so heavy that their old broken down ship can't pull it up. As a result, Deke summons his young son to give him a hand, and the crew manually starts pulling the rope. As the boat shakes, a gas can falls down, pouring it all over the deck. Eventually, the mast breaks down, causing Deke's son to fall into the water. Before Deke can do anything, his son is dragged under the surface by something unseen. Soon after, the water turns bloody red, which sets the entire crew into a panic. Another fisherman prepares a flare gun, but he slips and shoots it accidentally into the deck, which is soaked with gasoline. As a result of this, the vessel bursts into flames and explodes. Everybody on board is killed, and that guy who shot the flare is fired. The other townspeople witness the explosion and assume that a leak caused the accident. We are then introduced to a couple named Jim Hill and Carol, who are discussing the same blast incident with the town sheriff. In the midst of this, their dog walks out to the woods, where it is confronted by an unseen creature. The dog starts barking, but this creature attacks and kills it mercilessly. Later on, the couple realizes that their dog has gone missing and start to search for it, only to discover its dismembered corpse on the nearby beach. The next day, we learn that several other dogs have been killed in similar fashion. This monster is an asshole. The scene then shifts again to a teenage girl named Peggy Larson, preparing for the annual Salmon Festival, the dumbest festival of them all. During this time, she hears a strange noise from outside. She inspects the door, but finds no one. Frightened, she goes to the kitchen and arms herself with a fork for self-defense. It's not gonna do shit. She then cautiously starts inspecting the house until she is startled by her boyfriend Jerry Potter, who is about to cast Engorgio on the salmon in his pants. Believing that he was the one joking with her the entire time, Peggy brushes off her concern. The pair then get ready and drive to the festival, but instead of entering the event venue, they start making out in the car. As the event begins, the president of Canco, a big canning business organization, named Charles Borden, takes center stage to deliver a brief speech. He announces his vision to erect one of their manufacturing plants in the town, emphasizing the consequential creation of much-needed employment opportunities. He also introduces his esteemed special assistant, James Edwards, and his accomplished associate, Dr. Susan Drake, to the assembly. In a commitment to progress, Charles pledges to discover innovative methods to enhance the size, quality, and abundance of salmon. However, the unfolding event is abruptly disrupted by Johnny, who is carrying his dead dog in his hands. He blames Hank for it and threatens all the townspeople to take back the lands that are rightfully his, preventing the construction of the canning factory. The ensuing tension erupts into a physical altercation between Johnny and Hank, creating a scene amidst the event. Best salmon fest ever! After some time, the town sheriff intervenes with authority, effectively taking control of the situation. The following day, Jerry and Peggy are enjoying their romantic time together on the beach. They run around for a while and then go for a swim. However, their happiness is short-lived, as Jerry is abruptly pulled beneath the water's surface. Peggy initially dismisses the occurrence as a playful prank, but she is soon confronted with a harrowing sight: the mutilated remains of her boyfriend, whose Patronus didn't do shit. This scares her heart out, prompting her to let out a loud scream. She desperately tries to make it to the beach, but she is attacked and dragged onto the sand by a monstrous figure. This humanoid entity then tears off her swimming suit and forces... Back in the town, Hank assembles a group of men to discuss how to thwart thwart Johnny's efforts. They seem to be aware of Johnny's legal way of hiring the best lawyers and taking his case to the court. Hank asserts that if Johnny gets successful in this, they will never be able to establish their cannery business in town. After a long discussion, they come up with a plan to blow up Johnny's residence. The next evening, 2 more teens are camping on the same beach. They are about to get intimate when the same humanoid monster claws its way inside and kills the boy on the spot before chasing the girl. Although she manages to outpace her assailant momentarily, she ultimately runs into the clutches of another humanoid figure who throws her to the sand and gets fishy with it. In the meantime, Hank and his accomplices proceed to Johnny's house, executing their plan by launching a Molotov cocktail. Just as they thought, it sets the entire place on fire. Seeing this, Johnny and his friend Tommy attempt to combat the blaze, while his girlfriend Linda rushes to seek assistance. However, there are more things to worry about than fighting fires, because the humanoid monsters launch their attack. Tommy is tossed into the water and is on the verge of drowning. Witnessing the dire situation, Johnny wields his axe against the creature, but it proves too late, as Tommy has already succumbed to severe injuries. On the other hand, Linda is driving when she is suddenly attacked by the humanoid figure, resulting in the vehicle crashing and exploding. In the morning, Johnny brings Tommy's dead body at the port and tells all the onlookers that it was sea monsters. Hank, who does not want to disclose his involvement, feigns agreement with Johnny's narrative. Wanting to get to the bottom of all this, Jim gathers a small team, including Dr. Drake, in order to hunt down the so-called monsters. Upon receiving all the details from Johnny, Dr. Drake believes that these creatures are nocturnal predators and that they probably hide during the daytime. Judging by its size, she speculates that these creatures must be in the ocean at the moment. In the next scene, Jim, Johnny, and Dr. Drake board a boat and make their way into the sea. After wandering for a while, they come across several caves on the coastline. Dr. Drake senses something amiss and suggests that they go to inspect it in detail. Armed with a shotgun and crossbow, the trio then ventures into the cave, where they soon find a nest housing baby monsters. As the creatures approach them, Jim guns down all of them, one after another. Continuing their exploration, they stumble upon a partially buried leg in the mud. Upon removing the mud, they are shocked to discover that it is Peggy, who is still alive but severely traumatized. In the aftermath of this event, the 3 of them transport a baby monster to Dr. Drake's clinic for thorough examination, while Peggy is admitted to the hospital. Dr. Drake enlightens Jim and Johnny about the advanced characteristics of these creatures, including remarkable brain capacity, webbed hands, and gills. At this point in time, Dr. Drake finally reveals that their company was carrying out a secret experiment on something called DNA-5, intended to stimulate growth hormones. By experimenting with tadpoles, they were able to make a frog grow full size in a matter of days. She goes on to disclose that they applied this same technique to some salmon, but unfortunately, these fishies escaped from Canco's laboratory facility into the ocean during a storm and were eaten by large fish, subsequently mutating into the brutal, depraved humanoids that have begun to wreak havoc on the village. According to her, this creature can evolve to 4 growth stages in one lifetime, starting out as a fish and ending up as a human. She speculates that these humanoid creatures will attack more people because they perceive humans as competitors. Fish dicks versus Drake? This is getting good. Recognizing the urgency of the situation, Jim, Dr. Drake, and Johnny hasten to warn the townspeople amid the ongoing celebration of the annual festival event. But by the time they arrive there, it is already too late, as the area is already under attack. The humanoid creatures relentlessly murder every man and assault every woman they can grab, creating a mass chaos. People frantically run here and there in a desperate bid to save themselves from these monsters. In the midst of this commotion, Jim and Dr. Drake notice that the humanoid creatures are emerging from the water and devise a plan to stop them. They take a boat into the water and pour gasoline and crude oil, intending to set the humanoids ablaze and cut off their retreat. It turns out that these humanoid monsters possess a critical vulnerability. They cannot endure more than 10 minutes without access to water. her. Due to this, they eventually start to get weaker, so the mob of townsfolk begin to gang up against the humanoids. They then shoot, beat, and burn all of them to death. At one point, Hank sustains a severe injury and comes very close to death at the hands of one of the humanoids. Thankfully, Johnny intervenes in the nick of time and rescues him from the clutches of the humanoids. This incident finally resolves the gaps between the two of them.
Nothing sets aside the old differences, like almost getting dicked by a fish man.
Meanwhile, a bunch of humanoid creatures show up at Jim's residence, where Carol is alone with her little boy. Sensing the impending danger, she immediately locks up all doors and windows. She also hides her son in a room and then arms herself with a kitchen knife. Not long after, the monster breaks in through the window, prompting Carol to stab it multiple times. When another creature charges towards her, she sprays its face with pepper and then stabs it to death. Shortly after this intense confrontation, she hears a knock on the door. Despite being scared, she cautiously proceeds to open the door with the knife in hand, only to discover that it is her husband. This finally enables her to breathe a sigh of relief. The morning after the carnival mayhem, everything seems about to return to normal as the creatures are all dead, and the town begins to clean up the damage. Jim returns to the scene and asks the sheriff about Dr. Drake's whereabouts. The sheriff informs him that she has returned to her research lab. In the final scene, Dr. Drake is seen alongside the pregnant Peggy, who is already in labor. Suddenly, her monstrous humanoid offspring violently bursts forth from her stomach, resulting in a gruesome fountain of blood. The movie ends as everyone in the room screams in terror.